We're live. Hey, everybody, we're back. We're live, and I apologize for the technical difficulties with StreamYard, but I immediately pivoted and tried the tried and true YouTube system. So we're on with Vincent Williams. He is the founder and CEO of the um, I was about to say Urban Passion Project, but that's not it. What's the title? The total
Urban Compassion Project.
Urban Compassion Project, folks. And that's what happens when you're doing the multitasking, folks. And sometimes. Hey, Vince, thank you for your time. And first of all, yeah, tell us, if you would, what happened um, regarding the event yesterday. Ironically enough, on Valentine's Day.
Yeah. So what ended up happening, it all kind of started way before the initial event or the assault that happened yesterday. I think it's important that a lot of people understand just kind of the progression of what's been going on. The communities take, the cities take, and, advocates and organizations take on Fitzgerald Park. There was an email chain that was started about the increase in violence, death, and overdoses at Fitzgerald Park on 34th and Peralta. It goes without saying that, these are issues that we have in a lot of encampments in Oakland. Fortunately, I understand them firsthand because I have been a person who was overdosing. I've been a person that has been part of violence in my past. And so, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of root causes to these issues. And there was an email that was started that was talking about a community meeting that was to happen at a church in West Oakland. And at that meeting, I believe a few Saturdays ago, the discussion was based on what the community wanted to see done so that there be a decrease in the amount of violence and overdoses that they had seen, especially as of most recent, where one woman overdosed in her tent and was dragged into the street and essentially forgot about. One person was shot and killed, shot in the head and killed, and another individual was shot in the face and ended up in the hospital. And so, we as Urban Compassion Project showed up to the meeting. There was a lot to be said about advocates that were going into this area that were essentially, quote unquote, homesteading in tents that no one lived in, and actively telling individuals that had already accepted services not to accept services, right? And as a result of that, a person who had prior accepted services and gotten actually into a space called the Lake Merritt Lodge decided to come back, and as a result, he was shot in the face. And so we've seen this increase in violence, and it has been a lot of black on black violence, which is heartbreaking all in its own. That's another conversation for another time. But at this meeting, one of the solutions that was presented was that Urban Compassion Project go through with our 3-tiered model, and we work with individuals that we've had relationships with for the last 3 years while we have actively worked in this encampment on a weekly basis. And so we agreed to do that. That Monday, we went in and we actually started working with the unhoused there to clear up everything that they didn't want and that they viewed as trash or debris, right? We made great headway. About half of the trash that was in there was cleared out, all because they told us it could go, and they worked with us. They even helped us clean it up. Tuesday, Wednesday, we did the same thing, and unfortunately, we had to shut it down because I had some health issues. Now, the closure was posted to begin on the 13th at Fitzgerald Park with Public Works. On Monday morning, which was the 13th, emails started coming through saying that there were advocates on site that were telling people not to leave. There had been a couple of people that we had already worked with to get into the services and resources that they desired. This wasn't something that we were telling them to accept. These were services that people were saying, this is what I want. This is no less than what I will settle for. And true to our name, that's what we show up for, to help people receive. So I showed up to the encampment Monday morning, and there was an advocate that was standing outside of a structure, and they were claiming they weren't going to move because the person that lives there wasn't there to speak for themselves. And I told the advocate, that's understandable. I understand that, but I need you to understand that we've been working with this individual, and she actually accepted services, and she's receiving services right now. So you're literally like taking possession of a structure that no one lives in. And she said, well, how do you know this? I said, because I am the one who actively helped her to get the resources that she wanted. All right. Mm-hmm. So if you want to hold someone liable for this, you can hold Urban Compassion Project liable for it. And I can guarantee you nothing's going to fall.
You still there?
What ended up happening is we came to an agreement. They moved out of the way. The city was allowed to take the structure down and actually make some more headway. The city was allowed to take the structure down and actually make some more headway.
Sorry, Vince, that was you. I was making sure the stream was working right. It is. Go ahead.
Okay.
No more surprises. You there?
Operation Dignity was on site. City of Oakland.
You cut out, Vince. Vince? Hello? Vince? We may have to call him back. Let me call him back.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. 5103332.
Oh, there he is. Oh, Vince?
Yes, I'm here.
Call drop. Well, you're back. Good. Go ahead. You were saying?
So I was saying that everyone was there. There were a ton of people. Streets were blocked off. You know, the regular thing that you see at closures, except this was a little amplified because a lot of community members were out. A lot of people who actually live around this encampment who have helped out and done great wonders and actually like showing compassion and humanity towards the individuals that lived in these encampments were out, because everybody wanted to make sure that whatever was being done or breaking law and policy just to have this encampment closed, but also everybody got the services that they wanted. Operation Dignity was on site, and you know, like I said, I was on site, and we started making some great headway working with some individuals for the services they wanted. What ended up happening Monday towards the afternoon, there was a community member that is actually from the 42nd area, and he was going around. He had a vest on and a cowboy hat, and he had a picker, and he was picking up trash. And at some point, what he did was, one of the individuals that we were working with, whose son also lives in the encampment, the community member took his shopping cart that he had been putting belongings in that he was going to take with him to his new space. Mm-hmm. And he found out that his shopping cart was missing. He asked me if I had taken the shopping cart. I told him, "Oh, you know me, I wouldn't do that." And he said, "Well, figure out where it's at or I'm not going to leave." Right? Mm-hmm. So I talked to HSD, Amari with HSD. Amari said he didn't know what had happened to him. Talked to an employee with Oakland Public Works, and he confirmed that a gentleman wearing a cowboy hat and a neon vest had pulled the shopping cart to the side and gave it to him and told him that it was trash. And he had disposed of it. Wow. Right? Mm-hmm. Wow. The individual that had done that was no longer there. The individual that the shopping cart belonged to was informed of what had happened. And he basically said, you know, fuck that, I'm not going to leave. Mm-hmm. That was my stuff. I needed my clothes. I'm not going to leave. That doesn't make any sense. Who is this person? Where are they? his son, who lived in the tent next to him, got on board with his father and said, I'm not going anywhere either. Y'all just taking people's stuff. Right? Automatically, the blame got put on everybody that was still there. Shortly after this, Carroll Fife showed up. The operation had been happening essentially all morning already. Carroll Fife showed up, and there were conversations that happened that led to her telling some advocates that, and some of the unhoused there, that she was going to go to different, to open up more individualized, like going to tiny homes and telling them that they needed to condense space and move things around so that people could have single occupancy tiny homes. Right. Going to Lake Merritt Lodge and having them open up more space for people so that more people could get in, and going to St. Mary's and having space opened up. Quite literally, you know, I think the community needs to know that a city council member cannot go into these spaces by law and have them open up more space. And per nonprofit policy, HIPAA policy, and other policies that say that people have to be, what's the term that I'm looking for? Compatible to be in certain shared spaces together. There's been a lot of highlighted attention on these tiny homes and other shared spaces. And she was basically promising people that she was going to go into these spaces and get them to open up more space. And what that would call for is for them to go into their records, see what the compatibility is, get the okay to move stuff around, right, to open up this space wherever she went to do that. And it wasn't rational as something that could be done within the time period that they had posted for this closure. So, you know, for years now, we've been requesting to work with Carroll Fife and her team because some of the policy that she has proposed seems to be fitting if it could pass. Right? But there's been a disconnect because a lot of the times that she's going into encampments that are dealing with this kind of, you know, high visibility coverage because of what may be going on there or the attention that the encampment is getting, what ends up happening is unless you are the individual that is currently unhoused in that area, she doesn't want to talk to you. She wants the voice of the unhoused. And I have literally been in meetings when she didn't know who I was yet, where she promised the world to individuals living in an encampment and wasn't able to deliver anything. Anything at all. And then the fallback falls on the organizations and the people that are actually tasked with doing this work in the community. And then it comes to, why aren't you helping us? She promises this, and that. So at this day on this encampment, we didn't really say anything to Carroll on Monday. Obviously, all operations stopped right after lunch because of the incident with the shopping cart and because people were saying Carroll said that she was going to get us A, B, C, and D, so we're going to wait for her. The advocates were there. We need the Black community to know that Carroll Fife is utilizing white advocates in the community to tell people to stand their ground and not to accept services, even if the services are rational for them to take, and they've already accepted services. So this was kind of one of those things on Tuesday where we showed up, and in the email block, people are saying, hey, advocates are on site right now, and they're telling people not to leave. There's a difference between advocating for people and their just treatment and allowing them to understand what services are at their disposal and outright telling people, don't take anything that they offer you whatsoever. And as a result, people dying. So on Tuesday, when we showed up, I went to have a conversation with some of the advocates that were there. One of them yelled at me that this was all bullshit and that people weren't getting what they deserved. And I said, we've never met before. Let's just have a conversation. There was another advocate there that I've worked with more than a few times. We have each other on speed dial that I've actually been arrested with because we stand for what's right. Like, we will stand up and advocate for people to stay right where they're at, if it's founded, right? If there's a real rational reason, and if they say from the gate, I don't want to go anywhere, this is where I want to live, then we'll be like, okay, we'll make sure that you can stay right here. Whatever the cost is on that. This advocate started yelling at me. No, they're offering this. Carroll said this, and that. At this point, Carroll's husband, right, who I believe his real name is Ed Harper, comes up into the encampment, and
this is Tur-ha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And start saying, start speaking his piece.
Okay.
Right. At this point, we're all just kind of yelling at each other. So I'm figuring, you know what? I'm not going to do this. We're here to help the people that are here. Right.
Well, do you know what he was saying? Was it audible, or is it just that he was?
Well, he came in saying, you know what? That's not what we're doing here. We didn't promise people stuff, and it takes time. Like, it takes time. And I'm like, well, if it takes time, why would you even bring that as a solution? Like, if it takes time, that's like promising somebody you're going to get them into a 1-bedroom apartment and pay for them for a year when you know you can't. That's exactly what that is doing. And you nobody, I don't care who you are, can come out here and lie to people and say that you're going to do A, B, C, and D, and you know you can't deliver on it. Right?
Right.
And so I walked away from the conversation. And I walked towards the curb on 34th and Peralta, where HSD, Operation Dignity, LaTonda Simmons, and Carroll Fife was standing, plus a bunch of community members that were watching, just what was happening. Right?
Yes,
and
sir.
I walk up, and they're having a conversation about how we're not able to make any progress because the advocates are feeding people misinformation. And I said, I think it's time that we admit that it's not these fucking white advocates that are misinforming people. It's Carroll Fife who's misinforming the advocates, and the advocates that are going into this encampment and doing this work for her. I said, Carroll, black people are dying out here, and it's your fault because you keep promising people the world and you cannot deliver on it, and that's not fair. At that point, yes, I'm yelling. Yes, I am amped up, but arguments and heated debates come a dime a dozen in encampments when there's closures happening, where it gets heated. I don't know at what point that Ed Harper felt upon taking it into his hands, but as soon as I started yelling about the fact that she's making promises that she can't deliver on,
and that's Tur-ha.
Right, and we need to stop blaming it. Yeah.
Okay.
He jumped in and he started pushing me back physically. Don't approach her. Don't run up on her. I'm not running up on nobody. You tried to assault her. He's yelling at me. And I'm yelling like, you need to stop making false promises. You out here lying to people. You're lying to people. You're the reason black people are dying in our community, and you don't want to admit it, and your voters and your constituents want to believe that you're doing great work. And he's pushing me back. He's yelling over me, so I cannot speak my piece when I have the right to freedom of speech.
I have to ask a question, however.
Yes.
Take it from his perspective as a husband, regardless of whatever you think you know or I think I know about the relationship, which in my case is nothing. Did you do anything that, if you were married to her, would give you cause for concern?
I think we have to look at all of the angles here.
No, but I'm saying but it's emotional though. I mean, just honestly, if you were married, did you do something with that?
Honesty, if I was married to someone who was a city council member, who claims to be against the kind of violence that we see in our communities, right? I'm supposed to be in a relationship and married to somebody who runs their own security business and who's supposed to understand de-escalation and all of that.
Yes, sir.
Right? If I am him,
yes, sir,
and I have all of this training,
yes, sir,
and I am with someone who is a trusted servant in the community,
yes, sir,
I am thinking about how I can de-escalate this, not escalate this. I am thinking about all the rhetoric that we have put out about protecting black lives and making sure that we see less black on black crime and violence in our communities.
Yes, sir.
And I'm thinking about how I can potentially de-escalate the both of us, right?
Yes,
not actively push somebody back, not actively physically bully somebody and exact my form of violence upon them. even if I am in a relationship with them. And that is coming from somebody who spent 26 years of my life so angry and so full of rage that I would respond with violence 24/7 until in the last 3 years, I learned how to manage my emotions and the root causes of my trauma.
Congratulations. Yes, sir.
This is coming from somebody who trained in mixed martial arts for half of my life and has literally gone to prison because my hands are registered as weapons.
Yes, sir.
And given a strike and been charged with assault with a deadly weapon. This is coming from me.
Yes, sir.
The person who just did a bid in prison because, my last bid in prison for 4 years, 8 months, and 19 days because I was affected and I felt like the way that I should stand up for my relationship was with violence.
Yeah.
So speaking from that perspective and what I know in the past I was willing to do to protect whatever relationship I was in, to being where I'm at right now and understanding that like heated debate is fine, but no matter who is on site, we've done distributions where my partner has been with me in the middle of an encampment by St. Vincent de Paul, and we've had people that have literally threatened her safety and welfare, and I've had to de-escalate it. Right?
Yes, sir.
Without resorting to violence, and I've had to read the room and say to myself, is this somebody that's really going to be violent towards this person?
Yeah, so
Tur-ha can say whatever he wants, but he has seen me out in community and never, not once, has he seen me exact violence upon anybody. On the flip side, they have both been witness to the violence that has been exacted upon me and my willingness to accept it without responding back with violence.
Ignore that ring. So what you're saying is if there were a video of this, it would only show that you were talking animatedly because you're upset with a council member. And then all of a sudden you get pushed back because maybe, well, I don't know what the reason was, but you weren't so close that his behavior was. Hold on a second. Sorry about that.
He said that I was running up on her.
Yeah, what does that mean?
He said that I was running up on her. When this argument started, we were already close to each other. Right? There was I would hope that this video is released so people can see what happens when somebody is engaged in a heated debate in community, right? And everybody that is there knows that there is no potential for violence, and then all of a sudden violence happens.
So you quite literally didn't see that coming.
I had no idea that that was going to happen. I had no idea that he was going to physically grab me by my neck, punch me out, choke slam me to the ground, and slam my head against the ground.
Jesus Christ.
I had no idea that
Lord,
that
forgive
was going
me.
to happen in community with police, fire, and EMT, with HSD, the city admin, all of these people standing around watching.
And they didn't arrest him?
They did not arrest him.
Oh.
And the only thing I can attribute it to is local government protecting local government. But he's not local government.
Holy cow. Yeah, that video does need to come out because if it's there, if somebody has that video, please send it to me.
There was another occasion that you should know of. As soon as I got up off the ground and collected myself, obviously I'm out of sorts and I'm yelling for the police. Y'all need to get the police. He just assaulted me. He tried to kill me. Somebody get the police, right? I'm telling them, you fucked up. You going to jail. I'm pressing charges on you. That's attempted murder. I'm yelling at Carroll, Fife. This is the type of shit that shouldn't be happening in community. That's black on black crime. How you going to act like you care about black lives and your husband tries to kill me? And once again, he grabs me by my throat and pushes me up against the car and is choking me. And while he's doing this, OPD is running up. But OPD said they didn't see anything.
My God, I saw in the video that you posted on Instagram, there's at least one Mr. Ock was talking to. But I mean, all that aside, let me ask you, why is it that this problem seems to be complicated by unnecessary actions like fighting or violence or yelling? In
in all honesty, I feel like there has been this disconnect with certain leaders of our community that refuse to communicate, collaborate, and work with other people. With something, with an operation this big, with the city of Oakland, as many police raids have happened at this location, right? Like with all of the publicity that this location is getting, you would think that not a meeting would go by where people don't actively have their voices heard that claim they want to help out in this community. Carroll Fife never showed up to the meeting. She didn't send a conduit to the meeting, a fill-in, right? She didn't. She definitely didn't talk to Operation Dignity, who is paid, right? The paid outreach for this location. Tell them, listen, this is what I think that we should do. She never came to the table with everybody else saying, this is what I think she should do. She literally barreled into this encampment promising people stuff, and everybody was left speechless when everything was shut down because of such. And then everybody was left speechless even more when the violence happened, all because of a lack of communication and because people don't want to be held accountable.
I'm curious from the police perspective, not necessarily theirs, but just in terms of what I'm thinking. Was there an opportunity, you know, along the value chain of events here to talk to Police Chief Armstrong before he was put on leave?
There was not. So, I mean, there have been conversations about other incidences and things like that with Chief Armstrong. I have reached out personally to Captain Birch, and he responded with an email that he would contact me later.
To clarify, because the sentence could have been misunderstood, you said you're reaching out to try to get in touch with Chief Armstrong through a Captain Birch, right? About these incidents.
No, so I'm not trying to get in touch with Chief Armstrong. I'm actually trying to get in touch with Captain Birch.
Well, gotcha.
Yeah.
Why not the chief, though?
I would love to speak to the chief.
Okay.
I would love nothing more than to speak to the chief. The chief has been very welcoming in instances where there's actually been trainings with OPD and outreach conducted with OPD, and the chief has been very what's the word I'm looking for? Very good at assisting in helping kind of engage and build up on these relationships with people that are either civilian technicians or people that are helping with encampment management. But Captain Birch has really taken an active stance on finding healthier solutions, right? Probably more so of an active stance than Chief Armstrong, just because as a chief, you have a lot on your plate.
Exactly. Right.
You have so much on your plate, and he's been so overwhelmed. And I mean, unfortunately, right now, because of some of the things that's happening with Chief Armstrong, like this man's identity is at risk of being diminished, and he's an amazing individual, right? But I think that it goes unsaid that so is Captain Birch.
Yes, sir.
Because in the time that we live in, with the lack of morality with OPD, to take a different approach and try to find humane manners to actually work with individuals clear across the board is to say a lot, because you end up picking up more drama than you do good.
Well stated.
You know, so I really want to talk to Captain Birch, and more so because Captain Birch is part of the email chain and has been seeing all of the communications since day one.
Yes. Another question too. What about the mayor? Has the mayor sent out, Mayor Tal, she sent out any one? And then previous to her, how about Mayor Schaff?
So there has been a couple conversations with Mayor Schaff. Nothing, no ground was made, unfortunately, with that. And, you know, the hope would be that maybe we can speak to Mayor Tao at some point. She is, you know, Mayor Shane Tao is actually the one that gave Urban Compassion Project a commendation from City Council last year this time. Right, for the work that we do. She has, you know, consistently said that she appreciates the ability to kind of work with and collaborate with people, but also to pay attention to the needs of our most vulnerable. So I would hope with that stance and with that communication that she holds true to that, and that she's willing to have an open discussion about what we can do, not as politicians, not as advocates, not as unhoused, but people that are part of the Oakland community to find more healthy, sustainable solutions to where we're not crossing the line with ethics or violence.
Hey, for somebody seeing this, say from New York or Bangladesh or any place in the world, how bad is the homeless situation in Oakland? Where does it stand?
Listen, I was homeless for 26 years.
Oh, my Lord.
I slept on the ground in trash. I ate out of trash cans. I sold my body so that I could get a hotel room or get high so that I could feel safe. That was my reality for 26 years of my life until the last 2 years. My reality was waking up every day, having people tell me, I'm not giving you shit, get a job, trying to reach out, trying to get resources, trying to get assistance, and being told that there wasn't much available. And falling back on what I felt was going to make me feel safe. And on a lot of occasions, it was, feeling empowered that I could sell my body and that people wouldn't just take it because I was raped a bunch of times and taken advantage of. I started being homeless when I was 9 years old, and so I learned early on that if I was going to protect myself from the darkness that is homelessness, then I would have to learn how to compromise my own morals. I would have to learn not to trust people, and I would have to learn that the city and that government officials aren't to be trusted. Now, today, back in those days when I was out there, we didn't see tent cities the way that we see them today. We didn't see rampant overdoses on fentanyl the way that we see them today. We didn't see homicides happen at such an alarming rate in encampments the way that we see today. And we definitely didn't see drugs being sold in our encampments right in front of everybody with such carelessness. The reason why we cannot assist people as organizations that are tasked with the responsibility of assisting people with mental health, substance use, housing, and mutual aid services, we're not struggling so much with the individuals that live within these encampments. We're struggling with outside entities that are promising the world to these individuals, along with the dope boys who prey upon those that live in the encampments, that make it feel like I don't need to go anywhere because the dope is right here. That's what's happening in encampments. I don't know anywhere else, but for Oakland, where I was born and raised, and where I lived with a lot of the people on the streets that I work with today, like, that is the reason why we see an issue. Another reason why we see an issue in the inability to actually lower the number of people that we see unhoused is because displacements for the longest time have been actually the cause of what I like to call humane herding. We go into encampments, the city goes into encampments, city leaders or district leaders go into encampments, they promise people a bunch of stuff, they don't get those resources, encampments close down, right? And it's not reported how many people actually scattered across Oakland from said encampments and just set up in other places. And then it's recorded that more encampments are opening up.
So we're not solving the problem, we're just making it worse.
We're just making it worse. We're just making it worse. And I say we because I am a registered voter today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're all involved in this in some kind of way.
My response to District Leader Carroll Fife yesterday was the response that was I felt was necessary, because guess what? I am a registered voter, and it is my responsibility as a voter to hold my elected official accountable, because they were voted for by the people and they are accountable to the people.
Has Carroll contacted you to apologize on behalf of her husband, or has her husband tried to reach out and say, hey, I'm sorry I screwed up?
Nobody has reached out. So I sustained injuries from that incident. I was rushed to the hospital yesterday. The doctors told me that the reason why I probably didn't fall out to begin with is because my adrenaline probably kept me on my feet.
Yeah, it was your adrenaline that made you do the video, wasn't it?
Yes.
So I figured, yes. I was thinking, how can your brother get up? And I thought, dang, Sorry, go ahead.
Right. So I ended up getting home, and I actually leaned down to open up to let my dogs out to go outside, and my whole body locked up on me like I was in rigor mortis. I fell, I hit my head on a table, and I was on the ground for 40 minutes before I could get function of my arms to pull myself to the coffee table and call fire and EMT.
Jeez Louise.
When they got there, I had lost function of my arms and my legs again. My back was on fire. It was locked up, and my spine had shooting pains up it. They had to put a neck brace on me. They rushed me to the hospital. There were CT scans and exams and MRIs and x-rays that were done. And what they told me was that my spinal injury was aggravated, probably by being body slammed and bent. And that was the cause for what was happening. They didn't see any added injury other than the fact that I have an egg-size bump on the back of my head from my head being smashed on the ground. So that has been noted. When I got shot, there was a bone that was dislodged and fractured from my frontal skull. That's about half the size of my index finger that was pushing up against my brain. And they compared the scans to the ones that were prior taken a week ago at San Francisco General. And as a result of the activity in my head and my head being smashed, that bone actually shifted down into the left and further up into my brain tissue. So last night, I refuse to be paralyzed or allow myself to think that I can never heal. And so I started, moving my legs with my arms and just kind of seeing if I can get some circulation back through.
Wait, do you have a doctor?
I do have a doctor, yes.
Surgery?
I have 3 doctors.
You have surgery coming up?
So the prior conversation with neurosurgery at San Francisco General was that after the scans that they had taken prior, they were going to talk to their team to see what they could do to get the bone out of my frontal skull so that it doesn't affect my brain tissue in the front any more than it already has, because that brain tissue is essentially dead and it can't heal, and the bone in my skull can't heal correctly if it's not removed. So there will definitely be an operation at some point. We don't know when. Unfortunately, it may be a little bit more pressing because of this past incident that happened.
Vincent, I'm sorry this happened, because one of the feedbacks that was presented on the original video was Vincent makes things up, and I was thinking, how can anybody make something up like that? So
there's an individual named Derek. So
Derek's one of my vloggers. Derek's one. Yeah.
So I respect his position and his opinion and everything that he has to say. But unfortunately, a lot of what he's saying is false. I only met Derek one time, and it was for maybe 5 minutes, and me and our operations director were actually dropping off some baked goods from a bake sale we had just had. And he told me he was running for mayor and asked me my perspective. And I'm always honest with people. I said, I don't think that you'll ever win. Right. I think that, politics is sort of rigged in a way that you have firsthand experience and you can do something different, but they're not going to allow you to get into office, right, with that knowledge. And so there was some disagreement, obviously, but
the reason I didn't mean to break in is the one rare time I'm going to, but the reason why I have him as a vlogger is because we as people of color tend to communicate that idea as opposed to saying, hey, look, I know it's tough, but let's work together to get you in there. And that's what I'm going to say, Vince. Please do not say that to another person of color again, ever, because that's the problem. The reason why we collectively are poor is because we're consistently at each other like that. We don't combine. Imagine if you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I definitely, I 100% agree with that, but that is not to say that I have.
That's not to say you can win. I get it.
The person who was actually there, our operations director, who he claimed that we said we were going to give a $60,000 salary to, mind you, we got this person into housing.
Wow.
we are the ones that got this person into housing and got this person's wife who was dying the care that she needed. Right. Unfortunately, we didn't have a 501c3 and the city wasn't throwing us any money to be able to pay anybody. It's been 3 years and I haven't taken a salary. I haven't been paid a dime. And I've actually worked 2 jobs so that I could keep this organization afloat. There's nothing about publicity here.
Well, Carroll should be getting you some money, man. Carroll could take money out of her discretionary funds and give it to you.
Zennie, the work that we do isn't cute. It's not cute when I'm knee deep in trash and de-escalating people who are yelling at light posts and falling apart myself from my trauma because I'm looking at myself on a daily basis and other people. Wow. Right. Wow. So when this person was there for me, with me, our operations director, her name was Rachel, she will bear witness with everything that Derek is saying of how I said, well, what can we do? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I feel like you can't do this because the system is built against people like us. But what can we do? And I'll talk to Derek too, because he's one of my he's like family. So I'll take care of him. But I mean, at the end of the day, if Derek ever wants to come to, we have a broader network than we ever did. Right? We need a change in the city of Oakland from somebody who has a different perspective that has literally sat in the middle of encampments and seen it day to day. I never want to work for the city of Oakland. I never want to be in politics. But I truly believe that the person that should hold that seat is somebody who has firsthand experience and a rational idea of policy that could really bring about some change. And there's nobody else best fitting for Derek. And so if Derek is listening to this, you have my support. And I don't take part in politics. But we have a broader network, and if you want to get your voice out there about what you experience firsthand and what you feel like the solution is, utilize this network. Because we're Derek, listening. Call this man. I'm gonna give you his number, okay? Yeah, call me, Derek. Yeah, definitely, straight up, man. That's real. You got a physical therapy appointment coming up, right? I do. I have a physical therapy appointment in 13 minutes. They did release me to the hospital. I am home. Like I said, I have very limited use of my legs right now. I'm just grateful that I have feeling back in them because that lets me know that God has seen that, seen fit that I continue to do what I'm doing because I can't see anything else doing with my life than being 10 toes down and doing the work that we do. Well, I'll say a prayer for you, definitely. And I'll get Derek and have him contact you, and I'll reach out and for follow-up. And Carroll and Tur listening to this, or Mr. Ock, I don't think there's anything wrong with giving the young man a call and apologizing. I'm willing to. So I've had conversations with different people in the last few hours. Phones have been blowing up. Interviews have been offered. Media has contacted me a bunch of times. I have refused to talk to them. The only person that I spoke to was somebody from the Oakland side and you. Thank you. And the reason why is because what I really want, and what I think would be best fitting for the community is for me, Tur-ha, and Carroll Fife to sit down and have a conversation about what we can't do together to make sure that this type of thing doesn't just happen with us again, but never happens in community again. Yeah, and the reason why the person from Oakland side contacted you is because Steve Himoff sent me an email telling me he was going to take my video that I made about your email and send it to the Oakland side. And I didn't respond. Just says, well, I've got another one coming up, so stay tuned. Yeah. So anyway. Yeah. So I do need the community support. Like I said, I haven't been working. I don't have any income. The GoFundMe that we did post because of the injury that I sustained for the gunshot is still up. It has been utilized for medical expenses. We have been trying. Is that GoFundMe under your name? How can we find it? I'll put a link here to it. GoFundMe is in the link tree on our Instagram. So if you go to Instagram at Urban Compassion Project, you will find it in the bio under the link tree. And that'll be my next video showing that video, folks. That Vince made. So I suggest that anyone who is listening that really wants to get a view or a perspective on what my life has been like and why this organization does what it does, I would suggest you go to urbancompassionproject.org and click on the In the News tab.
Yeah.
And read some of the stories that have been posted that I've actually written firsthand, and some of the podcasts that have happened as a result of me just sharing my own personal story and why I feel it's fitting to have the approach that we do.
Vince, I want you to make your appointment on time. You got another 7 minutes.
Yeah, I need to try to prepare myself.
You got it, buddy. All right. Folks, we'll be back with more later. Subscribe to Zennie62, bookmark oaklandnewsnowblog.com and Zennie62.com as well. Thank you very much, sir, and Godspeed. We'll be back, okay?
Thank you.
Hey, Vince, stick around. Background. That didn't.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thank you. Ends the stream. All right. Okay. That ends that.